Chosen one. Why has your life always been harder than everyone else's? Ambient wind, a distant thunder roll, a breath, then silence. Narrator, calm, grounded, with a subtle echo. Have you ever wondered why everything in your life feels heavier? Why pain seems to follow you like a shadow, even when you do everything right? Why no matter how hard you try, it's as if the universe keeps testing you, while others just seem to float? Maybe you've looked at the sky at night, asking, why me? Why the silence? Why the loneliness? Why does it feel like no one truly sees you? What if I told you that this pain, this path, this pressure isn't random? What if I told you that your life has been harder because you were chosen, you were marked, and now you're here, not by accident, not by coincidence, but by divine alignment? Because the truth is, those who carry the greatest weight often carry the greatest light. But the world doesn't tell you that. The world tells you you're broken, that you're too sensitive, too intense, too emotional, that your tears are weakness, that your silence is failure. But it's not. Your pain is not a punishment. It's a message. You have always felt different, not because something was wrong with you, but because something sacred was right. Since you were a child, you could sense things others didn't. You saw through smiles. You heard meaning in silence. You felt storms before they came. That's not weakness. That's awareness. That's alignment. Maybe you've spent years trying to numb that voice inside you, trying to quiet the storm within, trying to fit into a world that was never built for you. But the more you tried to be like them, the more the universe reminded you, you're not. You were never meant to blend in. You were born to awaken, to remember. Every time you were rejected, every door that closed, every moment of silence was a whisper from the universe. You are not like them. And deep down, you've always known. This is why your life has felt like a battlefield, because your soul has been preparing for something greater, a purpose, a mission, a calling that only someone marked could fulfill. There are no coincidences. If you found this video, it's because your spirit brought you here. This is your confirmation. This is your mirror. This is your moment. Now, if this is resonating with you, if you've ever felt this invisible weight, this silent knowing, I want you to drop a simple yes in the comments. Not for the algorithm, but so the others like you can see they're not alone. Because trust me, you are not the only one marked. You are not crazy. You are not broken. You are remembered. And this is just the beginning. Music swells slightly, suspenseful but uplifting. But before we go deeper, before I tell you what the mark really means, before I reveal what your soul has been preparing you for all these years, I need you to take a breath and stay, because what I'm about to share could change everything. His name was Michael. He grew up in a small town where no one really asked how he was doing. He was that quiet kid in the back of the classroom who always looked out the window, like he was waiting for something that never came. At night, while others slept peacefully, he lay awake staring at the ceiling, questioning everything. Why did he feel so out of place? Why did the world seem so loud, so harsh, so wrong? Michael felt things deeply. The pain of others, the tension in a room, the quiet sadness behind someone's smile. It was like his soul had no shield. While others walked through life with thick skin, he carried open wounds that no one could see. He was often told, "You're too sensitive," or "Why can't you be normal?" But they didn't understand the suffering he was carrying. It wasn't just emotional, it was spiritual. A kind of sofrimento spiritual that crushed his chest and left him gasping for purpose. From the outside, he looked like everyone else. But inside, he was drowning. The coldness he felt didn't come from the weather. It came from being unseen. He walked school hallways like a ghost, invisible. He tried to smile, to fit in. But the truth, he was born different, not broken, just chosen. He used to cry into his pillow at night, praying, not for happiness, but just to be understood. And when no answer came, he stopped praying altogether. That's what pain does. It convinces you to disconnect from everything, even from God. But here's what no one told Michael. Sometimes, when heaven is silent, it's because something sacred is forming inside of you. He didn't know that his loneliness was a signal. He didn't know that his rejection was a redirection. And he definitely didn't know that the silence he felt was preparing him to hear something much louder later. The Chiamato Divino. Years passed, and Michael changed. Not because the world got easier, but because he realized He was never meant to walk the same path. The isolation, the sorrow, the nights he screamed into the void, they weren't punishments. They were training, each scar, a lesson, each tear, a sign. Sinais do escolhido. There's a moment no one talks about, when the chosen one realizes they've been marked their entire life, but only now do they understand why. That moment is raw, powerful, and terrifying, because when you finally see yourself, you can't unsee it. You realize you weren't crazy, you weren't lost. You were being called, whispered to, awakened. Michael's story is not rare. It's sacred, and if you're still watching this video, maybe it's because your story feels a lot like his. You cried alone because no one could hear you, but even that silence had purpose. Even that darkness had meaning, because some lights are so powerful, they only shine after they've been surrounded by shadows. If this part resonated with you, if something in your chest feels like it's finally exhaling, leave it in the comments. Let's see how many of us have walked that same silent road. There's something you need to understand now. Pain doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to reveal you. And I know that sounds strange, even cruel. But what if I told you that the pain you've carried your entire life has been trying to show you something sacred? That it's not chaos. It's a map, a hidden design, a fire, yes, but not one that burns you down, one that refines you. While others chase comfort and ease, you've been walking through fire barefoot with no one cheering you on. And that's because your soul is not on the same journey. While many are searching for happiness, you've been searching for truth. That's the difference. That's the mark. That's why your path is filled with more resistance, because resistance builds revelation. You've been asking the wrong question all these years. It's not, why do I suffer? It's, what is my suffering shaping me for? Because pain, for the chosen, is never random. It's sacred, it's targeted, and it's timed. You see, some people are awakened by love, but others, the ones marked, are awakened by loss, betrayal, silence, and fire. Pain is the alarm clock for the souls that sleep too deeply inside human skin. And yours? Yours has been ringing for a long, long time. You thought your tears were weakness. They weren't. They were sacred water. You thought your isolation was punishment. It wasn't. It was sacred protection. And those strange moments, the flashes of 11/11, the dreams that felt like warnings, the chills down your spine when you felt watched but no one was there, those weren't coincidences. They were confirmations, spiritual awakening, divine calling, prophetic signs. You've been prepared in silence for something that cannot remain silent anymore. You're not broken. You're being built. And the proof? It's hidden in every wound, because those wounds are where the light will eventually escape from. While others see light and feel peace, you see light and expect pain. Because every time you saw a door open, life slammed it in your face. Every time you hoped, you were reminded to survive instead. But hear this, not everyone who is chosen is celebrated. Some are crushed first, shaped, stripped, refined, because only the crushed carry the oil. Only the fire-forged carry the voice. Only the broken carry the power. The truth is, no one ever told you that your sensitivity was your strength, that your empathy was your edge, that your overthinking was actually deep spiritual decoding. But now you're starting to see it, aren't you? The signs have always been there. You just needed the eyes to see them. Michael had those moments too. Right before everything changed, he started dreaming of oceans and burning skies, clocks stopping at 11:11. Faces he didn't know, but felt like he had met before. Visions of falling and then flying. And one night, as he stood in silence looking out the window, he whispered, "I'm ready." That's when the real shift began. But I'll tell you about that in a moment. For now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever dreamed something that came true? Have you ever felt like the universe was trying to get your attention? If you've seen something, if your spirit has felt those messages, comment, "I saw it," below. Not for views, but to connect spirit to spirit. So we know, we're not walking this alone. It happened slowly, almost quietly. But something inside Michael began to shift. The pain was still there. The weight hadn't lifted. But something was different. Something inside him stopped asking why, and started whispering, what for? At first it was just a flicker, a subtle change in how he breathed when he cried, a moment of stillness in the middle of chaos, a dream that lingered longer than usual. A voice, not loud, not external, but deep within, began to speak. He didn't know what to call it, but he could feel it. The vase interior. The part of him that had been buried under fear, rejection, and spiritual exhaustion was waking up. He started noticing things that had always been there, but he had never really seen. Patterns, numbers, the way the wind would shift when his thoughts got too loud, the sudden silence in a room just before he had a realization, a song playing at the exact moment he needed to hear a message. He wasn't imagining these things. It was his despertar spiritual, the invisible turning point where the soul starts remembering why it came here, and once it starts, you can't go back. Michael stopped trying to numb the pain and started listening to it. He began walking without looking down. He stood a little straighter, not because life got easier, but because something deep inside had realigned. This was not about motivation. It was about alignment. He didn't need to be fixed. He needed to remember. And now he was remembering. The Missão Divina wasn't ahead of him. It was always inside him, buried under layers of survival. One day he woke up in the middle of the night, sweating. A vivid dream had shaken him. In it, he stood on the edge of a cliff, with a storm raging below, but he wasn't afraid. He stepped forward, and he didn't fall. He flew. It wasn't a dream. It was a message. The divine doesn't shout. It whispers, and those whispers become roars when the soul is ready. Michael wasn't healed, not completely, but he was activated. There's a difference. Healing is a process. Activation is a decision. He didn't wait for all the pain to end to move. He moved with the pain, and in that movement the pain began to transform. That was the real shift, the invisible one, the kind the world doesn't notice, but heaven does. If you've ever felt like something inside you is starting to awaken, if you've begun to notice strange signs, unexpected clarity, emotional earthquakes that don't make sense, this might be your moment too. Your inner compass, your higher self, your spirit, it knows. Even when your mind doubts, even when your past screams that you're not enough, let this be your pattern interrupt, your rhythm breaker, your permission to trust what you feel. That invisible shift, it matters more than anything the world can see. If you feel like you're standing on the edge of something, not a breakdown, but a breakthrough, then say it out loud. Claim it. Comment, "I'm ready," below. Because when you declare it, the universe listens, and when souls rise together, the earth trembles. Michael didn't just survive. He crossed over. There comes a moment when the silence that once crushed you starts to speak, and when it speaks, you listen. That's where he was now. Awake, aware, aligned. What he once called weakness, he now saw as a weapon. His sensitivity wasn't a flaw. It was his signal receiver. His anxiety wasn't malfunction. It was a frequency his soul couldn't ignore. The pain, that was the portal. And now everything made sense. You were never just someone broken. You were separated, hidden in plain sight, because what you carry is not meant for everyone. You were set apart. And now that the fog has lifted, you start to realize it was never rejection. It was redirection. Never abandonment, but alignment. God didn't forget you. He was forging you in silence. You see, we live in a world that hands out spiritual masks. Be positive. Just think happy thoughts. If it's meant to be, it'll happen. But you know better. You've lived in the trenches of the spirit. You've cried prayers that had no words. You've fought battles no one saw. You've stood in rooms full of people and felt completely alone. And still, you're here. That alone is proof. Chosen ones are rarely recognized at first. They're misunderstood, labeled, ignored, because the world isn't built to honor what it doesn't understand. But heaven doesn't play by earth's rules, and your mission has always been written in higher language, in numbers, in patterns, in pain, in persistence. Michael realized it the moment he stopped begging for answers and started embodying the truth. He wasn't here to be rescued. He was here to remember, to rise, to rebuild what was destroyed, not just in himself, but in others. That's what it means to be chosen. You don't carry a title. You carry a torch. You're not given comfort. You're given capacity. And maybe, just maybe, you've been feeling that same shift, those subtle signs. They're not random. The 1111s, the voices in dreams, the patterns, the synchronicities, the ache that never fully leaves. That's not trauma. That's the call. It's been chasing you through your pain, waiting for the day you'd stop running and finally turn around to face it. And now here you are. The revelation isn't that you've been through hell. The revelation is that you walked through it and didn't burn. You came out marked, not destroyed, because you weren't just going through pain, you were being prepared for power. Now listen closely. In the next video, I'm going to reveal 7 clear signs that you've already been called by God. Signs that have been circling around you for years. Some you've noticed, others have been hiding in plain sight, and once you see them, you won't be able to unsee. Because this pain you carried, it was never a punishment. It was the passage, the portal to your mission. But before you step into that next chapter, I want to ask you something real, something simple. What part of this video cracked something open inside you? If something I said reached deep into a part of your soul you had forgotten, if you remembered who you are, even for a second, then do this. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and comment below what moment shook your spirit awake. You can write the exact phrase, "I'm stepping through the portal," if you feel this is your moment. And if you know someone carrying a silent burden like yours, someone who's been walking in the dark without answers, share this video with them, not to go viral, but to start a revolution of remembrance. Because chosen ones awaken faster when they walk together. Music fades, cinematic echo slowly softens, voice lowers into a whisper. You were marked, and now begins the inner revolution.